Hello, part two of our weekend review, and we're talking about this proposal from KPMG, the £1 million plus. She did say it to me, £1 million plus report, which I have a horrible feeling could be delivered to another country next week, or Jersey and Guernsey might want to use it. I don't know, but that was a lot of money. But I mean, we can't put this all on Alf's shoulders, and the Council of Ministers are tackling this one, right? I mean, they've all signed off on this. We were one minister down. We might come to that bit, but when you in Tynwald again. The view was they're okay on it, right?
So yeah, absolutely. I mean, let's look at, actually, I'm going to say this. The economy was probably every single member's top 3 priorities in the election campaign. Did everybody stand up and talk about the economy? Did everybody debate on this? That certainly didn't happen. So that kind of concerns me.
Interesting to say, yeah.
Yeah, that's something. I feel he's making.
Well,
I
they
feel
also grow the economy, didn't they?
Well,
they
were all very eloquent in their election campaign about it. But we look at the Council of Ministers. I mean, I say to you, obviously, they've got their heads in their own departments. They've got to deal with that. They've got to deliver on that. There's huge pressure. We don't have a minister for the Department for Enterprise. We don't. Mark Lewin stepped back in as the COO role, or is he CEO? I never know which one he is, but one of those. But he's split over Cabinet Office and the Department for Enterprise. So his workload must be huge. So to be able to deliver on this, we're lacking in leadership there. And so that's something that I would say Alf has to deal with absolutely respectively and quickly. We're leaving, I think, in my opinion, we were left with for 2 weeks only in the last reshuffle with no DFE minister. That was too long. We've got to move fast on this. And I know we're going to be reviewing this in November, but actually, as I say, we've got highly competitive. We've got other jurisdictions that are biting at the bit right now, doing the same thing. If we don't act fast on this, then we really are going to lose out. We're already 1 year down.
Are you putting yourself forward, by the way? I mean,
no.
This is not a campaign to see you
I
take on this?
haven't had a call, Paul.
Okay, but would you like a call?
I prefer my scrutiny role. Absolutely.
It's not quite no, though, is it?
No, not never.
Oh, okay. That's
no,
definite.
not never. I want to deliver on something first. That would be my goal. But if there's no one else that can do the job, then of course.
Well, moving on to this issue of the government and the mess it's in. I mean, I was pretty close to the issue of Manx Care because I was the Keys advisor on Sir Jonathan Michael's review panel. And I believe in principle that what is being attempted is correct. And I supported Alf in his determination to do that and continue to do so. But my God, is it going wrong now? I mean, go on. First of all, we don't need to rehearse here the loss of integrity that occurred right across swathes of government as a result of the expose from Rosalind Ranson's...
It's not all over yet, is it?
It's not all over, and there's more to come. So, but the point being is this, with regard to Manx Care. The Manx Care Board, and now I'm talking about the board now, must have been conscious in detail of what was going on and what was going wrong, didn't intervene, may even have been involved themselves. So I now question the integrity of the Manx Care Board. I seriously do. The second thing is, the next thing that's going wrong is that the mandate was messed about with in sections 6 and 8, effectively detaching scrutiny that Tynwald was capable of from the process itself. And there's, if anything, it's continuing to go the wrong way, because I now understand they want review every 3 years by Tynwald rather than every year. So that's pushing the political body, i.e. the representatives of the people, further and further away from Manx Care itself. And then on top of that, you've got effectively 2 organisations developing. You've got DHSC, which should now be tiny. In the extreme, it should be tiny. And then you should have Manx care which should be appropriate for the task that it's doing, but it's not. And then finally, we've got this really worries me. It's the fact that Manx care seem to be, as it were, firefighting with bringing expensive teams in to shorten the waiting list. Okay, that's okay in its own right, but what's happening, as I understand it, from my knowledge, and I'm perfectly willing to be challenged on this, is that, happy to be challenged because I'd love to be wrong, but the establishment itself, the on-island clinician structure, is being undermined. And what therefore is happening is that we've got an unwieldy organisation becoming unaccountable and actually ending up as an extension of UK NHS. We're losing our health service on the Isle of Man. And this thing is right at the core of the report by KPMG as to its importance. So we're losing out on that. We're miles behind on housing. And yet what we want to do is start pulling more tax in, as Juan says, to pay for a bigger government. We are not in a good place here.
Yeah. Let's talk about the housing thing for a bit, because I think it's slightly eased off at the minute, but I mean, we have seen some massive jumps here, and clearly there's got to be some more houses built if they've got aspirations for this 100,000, right, Claire?
Yeah,
what do you think? Do you think this is the right route to go down?
Well, as I say, we've got through a year. I've not seen the change that or even I don't see the strategy. I still don't see those figures. And I've said this from the start, even back to the island plan. I don't see where they say we want 500 more houses. We want 500 more social housing. We want, over the next 10 years, we want 10,000 more social housing. I don't see where those figures and those numbers are. I still haven't seen them now. And that concerns me greatly because, you know, when I can't get, or I have a huge list of people wanting social housing, people wanting appointments with doctors, people, you know, etc. This concerns me because if we're looking at a population increase, we can't get it right now. Our housing isn't correct right now. But yet we have a housing plan that's over a certain amount of years. How are we going to achieve 15,000 people here to come here on the island? How is that going to be achieved?
Well, we know it's not going to happen.
I mean, there's nowhere for them to live. And I believe Alf's criticism was about people having second houses. So we do have the stock there. We need to tap into that. How is he going to tell someone to sell their country home or their holiday home? How is he going to make them want to do that? Is he going to start again? It's going to be higher taxes.
They love their almost authoritarian view at times, and that's not the way we should be doing it. We shouldn't be beating people up who have the audacity to own a second property. You know, if people have invested, then there's got to be other ways of doing it. And I think that's the problem. They're sort of putting all the blame on sort of, you know, how dare somebody be wealthy? What we should be doing is we want to lift everybody into wealth. That's the whole point of government, to enable that to happen. But
and I haven't heard Alf talk about actually greenfield sites. It's all brownfield. Well, if we're going to start using, you know, Athol Street as recreating flats, and where are the people going to work?
But who wants
then?
To live there?
These 5,000 people, where are the offices going to come from? So it's a dichotomy.
I couldn't think of anything worse than living in the middle of town.
Is it so we will build it and they will come? Or is it, you know, get the infrastructure in first, and then like
what are they coming for?
Okay.
Well, no, let's just talk about this infrastructure thing. Now, we've heard government wax lyrical about climate change, about what's going to happen there, and we've also heard government now waxing lyrical about this. And they bring in these massive, exciting headline numbers like £1 billion, and then when you ask them, oh well, yes, well actually, it'll have to come from the private sector. Excuse me? And then, well, what about the cost of insulating houses? How is government going to get... Well, government can only do so much. I think we're in a fairyland at the moment. I really do worry about where all this is going. And I'm not anti-Alf. I haven't suddenly gone... I want him to succeed. But my God, I think government's drowning right now.
But do you think that it's drowning from the onset? Do you think the island plan was realistic?
What I go back to first principles when I've held. Put it this way. Many years ago, I said, for goodness sake, there are so many. I think I used it in Tynwald, the phrase black swans. My God, we're not getting occasional black swan. We're getting flocks of the damn things coming over. War, COVID, inflation, gas prices, instability, non-availability of staff. It's happening all over the place. And I said, the first principle is you've got to get government smart, efficient, and driving its funds to frontline services. We've done none of that. And that's where the respect is lost for all those seniors in government who should have grasped it, who didn't, because they've been in a complacent and comfortable place year upon year when the Isle of Man had the money.
That's the culture, though. And that's the culture
and it's
that's
dangerous
played
and
out with the ransom situation. The whole culture of the civil service, especially in the senior ranks, is that complacency.
When I first came into...
There's no performance-related...
Yeah, when I first came into government, and since then, I've asked the question regularly, is government there for the people or are the people there for government? Well, my goodness me, it's now the latter. And it's about time people started getting angry and saying, we've had enough of this. We demand that you reduce the size of government, deliver the money to our teachers and our health service, which is highlighted here, and find ways, once and for all, to get the bureaucracy, the regulatory, authoritative approach banished, because this KPMG report is a high-risk strategy, and the island can collapse around it because, as Juan says, we will not get those people based on these proposals. It will not
The
happen.
only way this place is going to get sorted out is if we end up effectively defaulting and going bust, because it will not change. And that's the problem.
Government going bust.
Well, effectively, yeah. I mean, wasn't there a jurisdiction a bit like ourselves that was linked to Australia years ago that used to be autonomous, and they got to the stage where they said, you know what, we can't afford to do this anymore, so we're handing ourselves back to Australia. I forget the
you see,
name.
as a Manxman, I'm always interested that you come up with this, because you're so many times say we should just be part of the UK, have one MP to represent us all. Haven't you done all that?
That's not what I said.
No, okay.
No, absolutely not what I said. We should have representation in Westminster, because whether we like it, I know we like to try and deny this, but we are a British possession. And if you look at other parts of the UK, the likes of Shetland, Orkney and other rural areas, they retain their identity, they're very proud of their identity, and it's very strong, but they get funding for projects from London. St Helena, they needed a new airport. Who paid for that?
That was a whopper, and
Well,
that was very expensive.
It was very expensive, but who paid for it?
Oh,
It
yeah,
wasn't
yeah.
St Helena
But
that paid for it.
just-
And this is the point I'm making.
What
We're
you're saying you
here,
want us,
the Isle of Man government should be there to deliver the frontline services
Like a
that
local
the people
government.
need. Exactly like a county council. People want doctors, dentists, schools, teachers, nurses. They want to be able to have their bins emptied. They want to be able to drive down a road that doesn't wreck their vehicles. These are all functions.
so make this quite clear.
that county
Yes, okay,
councils
but
deal with.
you see the Isle of Man being part of the United Kingdom in the sense of all the taxes,
With
everything
the-
else would be levelled off,
Well,
and we would be paying UK rates.
With
No?
devolution, there's no that you can't just say, "Oh, we'll become like Lancashire." There's lots of different models, isn't there? With the
Scotland.
levels of autonomy that the different nations and regions have, and certainly when it comes to the Isle of Man, we could do a lot better by being closer to the purse of Westminster than further.
But you
away.
mentioned Scotland. They're trying to do the opposite. They're trying to get out of it.
Well,
Exactly.
That's Nicola Sturgeon's.
Well, she's getting nearly
but-
50%.
Well, you
But
say
there
she
are
is.
reasons to that, and just to give the balance argument, obviously, to this, there are reasons why it's better for us, because obviously jurisdictions that are tied to the UK, like for example Scotland, their frustrations are that they're not in the priority of London, and they don't get as much, or they're not seen as a
they get a very good deal
and
out of the.
that would be a concern, I think, for any Manx person if we were to hand it over to the UK.
Yeah, but we're not. What I'm saying is, we wouldn't be handing it over. If you look at that, I mean, take travel.
But
for
you'd still get a
example.
budget. You'd still get a budget budget
Well,
from them.
that depends on the constitutional relationship.
They would start taking our taxes, start taking our NI.
But if our services are better and we aren't employing, I don't know, 10% of the population in the public sector, and the citizen ends up getting a better deal and more money in their pockets, is that a bad thing?
So obviously the ramifications of it are we'd end up paying probably 40% tax because these are things that would have to level up.
We might not. That's the point is
eventually
we
it
could.
would happen.
It depends what that negotiation is, but that's the higher end, of course. The average man in the street won't be paying 40% tax because they don't now. I mean, I've got a business that's located. I moved one of my businesses out of the Isle of Man to England, knowing that I'd be paying corporation tax. The existence of that business is far more easier than dealing with anything that goes on here. I was prepared to pay corporation tax for the ease of working.
I'm talking about
because
personal
this
tax.
place is so.
So
yes, but don't
individual
forget,
personal
not
tax.
The average. I mean, what is the threshold now?
It's been a while since I worked there, and I would have to look it up. So I'm not going to quote anything. But I mean, when I was working there, I was
to be paying
paying
40%.
Yeah, no, but anything over 25,000 at the time when I was there was 40%.
Yeah, I mean, just the one thing we all want. We want low taxes, but we want nice services. I mean, this has been the massive conundrum, hasn't it, forever? Because we look at the UK and they have this and that and other going on, and we want exactly the same, if not more, but we don't want to pay any more money for it, on personal tax anyway. And
what we need is a government that's efficient enough to make that achievable. But right now, it's impossible. And it's the elephant in the room. It's huge. It's just there, screaming at us, and we're sort of ignoring it. But I mean, one of the strange things that KPMG. So you were talking about, the ability of the Isle of Man to retain its fiscal independence, and KPMG say, well, the Isle of Man has significant reserve. No, we don't. We have the NI fund, which is just short of a billion, isn't it? And that's earmarked for everybody's children and grandchildren's pensions, effectively. And outside of that, there's very little left, which is why when government come forward with these supposedly ambitious plans, they say, well, we need to spend this, but government hasn't got the money. And you think, where is all this going?
Well, it's a shambles, isn't it? I mean, we haven't even got the money to put some lights at the end of the runway, and yet they're talking about things in the report of growing the population. There's weeds everywhere. The place is shabby. We haven't got the money. The hedges aren't getting. We haven't got the money. We keep hearing we haven't got the money, and yet we're trying to attract people in, and that's why we need to go right back to the basics.
Is this 100,000 doable? Is that just a number plucked from air almost? It's nice
I
and
think
round?
I think it's not just people, and they're making this clear, and I understand why. It's young people, and the competition for young people is massive.
They're not going to come here.
No.
It's absolutely huge.
Not as
and
we
and
are.
And they don't declare in this report how difficult it is going to be. Have they said, this is what KPMG... Have KPMG said, this is what we think because we've been asked and we're going to be paid £1 million for it, and therefore this is what we can come up with. It's highly risky and highly unlikely to be achieved, and in the process do a massive amount of damage. I think it's time to step back from this proposal somewhat and be honest enough to get government in a fit state, so the 94% of businesses which are SMEs can start respecting the organisation they're dealing with again. Because right now they don't.
And that and it goes back. And do they honestly think they're going to attract young people to come to the Isle of Man who are currently working in new and emerging sectors? You look at what Liverpool's done over the past 15, 20 years.
Creative industries.
Liverpool used to be one of the most run-down areas of the northwest, and they've just reinvented the place.
Yeah, but they've got lots of money from government, no doubt to do it,
right?
right? That's how it works.
Well, that's exactly what I'm saying. Yeah, but it doesn't matter where they've got the money from. That's irrelevant.
Okay.
The fact is that you've got young people who are working in vibrant cities like Liverpool, Manchester, Leeds, and even Glasgow managed to reinvent themselves as well with the money that was ploughed in there. We're competing with that. The young people working in these sectors don't care that those cities have had funding from Boris or whoever. The fact is, they've got vibrant cities, they've got good restaurants, they've got good social and nightlife.
Retail.
They can jump on the train when they're not on strike and go somewhere.
Let's pick
But they can hop to Manchester Airport and go on a holiday in the Mediterranean relatively cheap. Okay. Why are they going to come here? We've got to set the environment. We're not going to do it.
I want to pick up on this in the next section, the last section, okay, more on that very subject. So join us at part 3.